Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today I'm rolling at you with another community steal video. And today's first victim is the Baby Lorraine from Matamis. However, on this one, the turret is actually made by Praxis. Now, it weighs in at 15.53 tons. It's armed with a 75 millimeter gun with 175 millimeters of penetration. And it is for the late war period. This thing's actually pretty wicked fast. Realistically, all in all, to me, it kind of feels like he just more or less took a Lorraine and completely scaled it down, reduced the weight, which obviously would also mean he had to reduce the armor. Now, one thing is, it's got a really small magazine. It's only got 12 shots, so you really got to make the shots count. That being said, the gun's got pretty decent accuracy. It's actually got pretty decent penetration at 175 millimeters, so there's no issues there. I didn't get all the decals for this, so I have no idea what this vehicle looks like with all the decals. I didn't know I even needed additional decals because all I got was the blueprint when I downloaded it, but that's neither here nor there. No matter which way you look at it, I think the vehicle looks good. The oscillating turret works as should. Things of that nature, and it's also got a custom muzzle brake, so we'll give credit there where credit's due. And it's got the Lorraine type suspension where the road wheels are the rubber type, the tire type road wheels. All right, moving on to the next vehicle. This is from Not Stonks, and this is his M6A2E1. Here we go. We finally got a rendition of the M6 Mutant. I've been kind of waiting for this. And this was actually a test bed vehicle that was built by the U.S. Army to essentially test and prototype the 105 millimeter main gun, which it does have, and it has 179 millimeters of penetration. That being said, this turret is monstrous, but well armored. The turret armor is really good. I didn't really get hit on the hull at all because of how big the turret is. It's actually got really good gun depression. So basically I kept any damage, incoming damage on my tank to the turret, and the turret held up really well. Mobility's okay. It feels very mediocre, to be honest, but you know, that's just it though. That I recall from World of Tanks, the M6 Mutant did maneuver around slower than a regular M6. And of course that makes sense because it's a heavier vehicle. The turret is, as I said, massive. It's thick armored. And then of course it's got the 105 millimeter gun. So that's additional weight that it has to take up. This is made for the late war period. And as you can see here, I'm actually going up against my PZ756Rs, which are essentially German versions of the KV1. Essentially, it's a captured KV1 that's got a Panzer IV, the long barrel 75 millimeter main gun. So it's got decent penetration, and these tanks was not penetrating the M6 Mutant here. So very good job on the end of Not Stonks. And as I said, this is the only version of this vehicle I've seen, and I think it looks rather good, all in all. The next vehicle I have here is, well, it kind of looks like a piece of rubbish, but it really isn't. Let me get into that. This is the Vickers T3B by KV. It weighs in at 11.91 tons, so it's almost 12 tons. It's armed with a 20 millimeter main gun, has 52 millimeters of penetration, and this is made for the interwar period. Now, honestly, I would not want to be caught dead in this tank. But actually, this tank is not bad, and it does look like a realistic tank from that time period. The way it's designed and laid out and things of that nature. Understand that at that time, they really still didn't have a full idea of how to create a tank. And surprisingly, the tank itself feels pretty mediocre, mobility-wise, gun-wise, things of that nature, but it's one of those, it's because it feels so average everywhere, it makes it a good tank. I'm not sure really how to explain it. You know, it's just not great at anything, but it's good at everything, is what I'm getting at. And I think actually the tank looks rather good. That's why it's here. It's definitely a keeper tank if you're looking for more fictional tanks. At least I think it's a fictional tank. I don't recall ever seeing this thing in any of my tank books, but maybe it's a prototype that I've never seen. And I do like how he's got it all laid out with it's actually got a machine gun on the back of the turret, and it's actually got a perfectly nice rounded type turret that was pretty common on tanks at that time period. And you know, it actually held up pretty good. I was actually quite impressed at how well it held up. But when I opened it up and looked at it, I kind of assumed that it was going to be really thin armor, and the armor was not going to be very good, but it actually did hold up to some of the abuse, at least against the tanks I was going up against. The next vehicle I have here is from GentleBeam. This is one of two that I actually have from GentleBeam in this video. And this is his T49, and like, he took some time with this because it looks like a one-on-one. Like, you can match this to photographs of a T49. It feels like it's got the right size. It feels like it's got the right shape. It's got the 152 millimeter main gun. He's got this thing weighing in at 20.88 tons, so it's almost 21 tons. The 152 has 118 millimeters of penetration. It's actually got a rather fast reload. It's only like 8.5 seconds. So for a 152, not bad. Of course, its main shortcoming of having the 152 is, well, it's going to be not as effective at penetrating some of the heavier tanks that you'd probably have in your game. The other thing is, too, is it's not going to be as accurate at long ranges, but that's neither here nor there. This thing is a wicked fast tank, though, for sure. He does have this set up for the late war period. As you can see right now, I am showing off some of the mobility. I think it's hilarious every time the gun fires, too, and the tank just rocks like all hell. That's always gnarly. The next tank I have from GentleBeam is the M2475. This is an interwar tank destroyer, or at least tank destroyer type vehicle. It weighs in at 11.29 tons. It has a 75 millimeter gun, and it's got 59 millimeters of penetration. Now, there is one issue I did find with this, is he doesn't have the I'm trying to think of the word. Essentially, he doesn't have the limits on the gun traverse and elevation depression down, so you can actually get this gun to go all the way around. That's something he needs to work on, or you could work on yourself as well. The armor, it's a mixed grab bag. It's mostly reliable, but it's not always going to be reliable, so it's something I wouldn't necessarily count on. It just so happens to be doing a pretty decent job here. That being said, though, the vehicle itself, maneuverability-wise, does work fairly decent. The other thing is, too, is the suspension is actually well detailed, and you should see it here shortly. I do give a fairly good look once I get clear of fighting these enemy tanks of the suspension. He actually constructed like a shock absorber type spring system, the whole 9 yards. So very well detailed suspension, and all in all, the vehicle itself doesn't look bad. The way he did the engine deck, things of that nature, and the commander cupola. Let's try and get a good shot here. And actually, the 75 millimeter gun was a mixed grab bag too. It was okay for the most part, but I think it could use a little bit more penetration, in my opinion. But of course, with the armor being unreliable, you're probably going to want a faster firing gun over a heavier gun. Now, I did pretty good there, penetrating that M2 medium, which that's actually my tank. Okay, I give you a good look at the suspension here, although I got to flip it around. I do flip it around. There we go. And there you can see what I'm talking about, where it's like got kind of like a spring construction to it. And I think that's actually rather cool. That's a nice detail suspension that he had done for his M2475. All right, the next one I have here is the official Koenig 44 cm Moser. I think it's Moser. Essentially, it's a giant mortar system with an oscillating turret. It's pretty cool. Kind of based on the Jagdtiger, if you, or not the Jagdtiger. Sorry, the Storm Tiger. The Sturm Tiger. Good Lord, if I ever get it right. Kind of based on the basis of the Sturm Tiger, except for here he constructed a turret instead of using a hardened fighting compartment. The rear of the mortar is actually exposed, which makes sense because of the crane system and make it easier to load the vehicle. Of course, there would actually be doors over that for actual use. And I think it's actually rather cool how he set this up. Now, the reload on this thing is miserable. It does weigh in at 59.14 tons. Mobility is a mixed grab bag. It does actually really good on flatter surfaces, but when you start trying to climb steeper terrain with it, it definitely has its shortcomings mobility-wise. It does actually have a 440 millimeter gun. The gun is just massive. It's actually only got 15 millimeters of penetration, which that doesn't matter because something like this would be designed to fire, first off, rocket-assisted ammo. Second off, it's made to destroy, you know, you don't use this to bust a bunker. You use this to bust a whole city. This thing is ridiculous. It is made for the late war period, and I'm going to try and get a good shot of the gun going off here. This gun is just so massive. It's ridiculous. Look at the size of that explosion. This thing is just so ridiculous, just to be honest. But it's definitely a very cool design. It's interesting to see how he put it together. I'm actually curious at how he got it all hollowed out and stuff like that too. So that way we could actually see the gun breech. Because you can actually see the inside. It's completely hollow in there. I think that's interesting. But anyway, folks, that's going to wrap up today's episode of Community Steel. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for tuning in. And keep yourself sending me those Sprocket projects, folks. You can find me either in the official Sprocket Discord. You're going to search for Mighty Bjorn. Or you can join my Discord, and actually there is a section in my Discord dedicated to just Sprocket stuff. Kind of got my own little mini community going on, if you will. And the link for that Discord is in my video description. Anyway, folks, once again, hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have yourself a wonderful day.